So, what does a Dodge Charger, a Pontiac Trans Am, and two very different GMC trucks have in common? They weren't just cars. In the golden age of the 80s television, they were characters. They were the loyal sidekicks, the indestructible heroes, the escape plan, and for a generation of kids, they were the coolest thing on four wheels. They were the General Lee, KITT, Colt Seavers GMC Sierra, and the A-Team's Vandora. But behind the on-screen magic, there's a fascinating and often brutal story of production realities. How many of these iconic vehicles did the studios actually use? How many were sacrificed for that perfect jump or chase sequence? And most importantly, how many survived the Hollywood meat grinder? And where are they today? Well, grab your keys because in this video we're going on a deep dive. This is the complete history and final census of television's greatest automotive legends. Our first stop, Hazzard County. The General Lee. Just the name conjures up the image of a blazing orange 1969 Dodge Charger, doors bolted shut, soaring over a creek. For 7 seasons it was the bane of Boss Hogg's existence and the undisputed star of the Dukes of Hazzard. But the car you saw on screen was more of an identity than a single vehicle. The brand of the General Lee was defined by its chemi-orange paint, the 01 on the doors, the black push bar, and of course that controversial roof flag. So, the million-dollar question, how many Generals were there? This is one of the most debated topics in TV car history. You will hear numbers ranging from 225 all the way up to 325. So, what's the real answer? Well, they are all kind of right. The most credible sources, including the guys who actually built the cars, point to a figure of 325 vehicles being acquired by the production. This master number includes not just the cars you saw on screen, but also donor cars bought just for their parts, an engine here, a fender there, to keep the fleet running. The number of cars that were fully built, painted and appeared on camera is estimated to be between 255 and 300. So think of it as a massive logistical operation. 325 cars went in, and about 255 till 300 finished Generals came out. Most of which were about to have a very, very bad day. At first, the plan was to use only pure 1969 Dodge Chargers, but the show's signature stunt, the jump, was a car killer. They started running out of 69 models almost immediately. The solution? They started buying 1968 Chargers and modified them. They would swap the 68's round taillights for the 69's full-width panel and change the grille. In fact, the very first General Lee built was a converted 68. It is estimated over 40% of the entire fleet were actually disguised 1968 models. By the final season, things got desperate. For some jumps, where the car would be a distant blurry object, they secretly used AMC ambassadors painted orange. They even started recycling old jump footage to save cars. The math here is a bit staggering. The production destroyed, on average, 2 to 3 Chargers for every single episode. The jumps were pretty much always a terminal event. To get that beautiful, level flight, the stunt crew would load the trunk with 500 to 1,000 pounds of concrete ballast. The car would fly perfectly, but when that extra half ton of weight came crashing down, the unibody frame would buckle and bend beyond repair. The crew would then descend like vultures, stripping any usable parts before the crumpled shell was sent to the junkyard to be crushed. So, after all that carnage, how many originals are left? The consensus is that approximately 17 to 19 screen-used cars survived the production. When the show was cancelled, Warner Bros. Basically abandoned 18 of them on the backlot for 5 years before selling them off to collectors in 1991. The two most famous are Lee No. 1 and 6. Lee No. 1 is the car from the opening credits, the one that made that legendary jump over Roscoe's Cruiser. It was wrecked, left in a Georgia junkyard for 2 decades, and rediscovered in 2001. After a painstaking restoration, it was bought by a pro golfer, who still owns it today. Lee No. 6 is the only surviving car from the original episodes filmed in Georgia, and it's the only one that exists in its original unrestored 1978 condition. It was never jumped. Today is the centerpiece at the Volo Museum in Illinois, a perfect time capsule. You can see other authenticated survivors at the Hollywood Stars Car Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and a promotional version at the Pioneer Auto Show in South Dakota. Sadly, the fleet does shrink. In 2023, a privately owned original was totaled in an accident. From hundreds destroyed to just a handful left, the General Lee's story is one of a spectacular planned destruction. Next up, we'll look at a car that was built to be indestructible, but whose fleet suffered a very similar fate. A shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist, and a car that could not exist. The Knight Industries 2000, or KITT, was the stuff of every kid's fantasy. A self-driving, talking, turbo-boosting, seemingly indestructible 1982 Pontiac Trans Am. But to create the on-screen myth of one indestructible car, the studio needed a fleet of very destructible ones. The total fleet size for KITT is estimated to be around 23 cars, but they didn't get them all at once. At first, production had a tough time even getting their hands on the new Trans Am. They started with just 3 or 4 cars delivered without paperwork. Then, they got a lucky break. A train carrying brand new Camaros and Firebirds derailed in California. Due to state law, these cars, even with minor damage, were deemed legally unsaleable to the public. The studio swooped in and bought between 10 and 12 of them from GM for the grand price of $1 per car. Many of these were base model Firebirds that the art department would then transform into KITT stunt doubles. This influx of cheap expendable cars changed everything, but it came with a catch. A deadly one. The KITT you saw on TV was an illusion, stitched together from multiple specialized cars. The hero car, this was the pristine one, used for close-ups of David Hasselhoff and all of those amazing dashboard shots. The stunt cars, these were the workhorses, many of them being converted Firebirds from the derailment. They were reinforced for action, with some even having lightweight fiberglass bodies for jumps. And then there's the blind drive car. This was pure genius. It was a right-hand drive car where the stuntman could lie low in the passenger seat and drive the car, completely hidden from the camera, creating the illusion that KITT was driving itself. And so, how many KITTs were destroyed? The official most quoted number is just 1. This likely refers to a single vehicle so catastrophically damaged it was written off the books. But the real number is much higher. The true culling happened after the show ended. That contract for the $1 derailment cars had a crucial stipulation. Because they were unsaleable, GM required the studio to destroy them all once filming was complete to avoid any liability. So, after the show wrapped in 1986, approximately 17 to 18 cars were sent to the scrapyard. Sources say the studio fulfilled its contract by having them destroyed with a wrecking ball. This mass execution is why screen-used KITTs are incredibly rare. Of the original 23 cars, only 5 authentic cars were spared from destruction. This scarcity created a huge market for replicas and fakes, making authentication a nightmare. Thankfully, a group called the Knight Rider Historians have dedicated themselves to tracking down and preserving the real ones. They own at least 2 of the 5 survivors themselves. If you want to see a real KITT, you have a couple of options. One of the cars owned by the Historians is currently on display at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Another authenticated survivor resides at the Marconi Automotive Museum in Tucson, California. The other 3 are believed to be in private collections. So, while KITT was indestructible on screen, most of his real-world brothers met a very definitive end, making the surviving 5 true icons of television history. Next up is a truck that was just as much a stunt performer as its driver. For 5 seasons, Lee Majors played Colt Seavers, a Hollywood stuntman who moonlighted as a bounty hunter, and his essential tool of the trade was a beautiful 2-tone brown and gold GMC Sierra. This truck was rugged, resilient, and capable of performing some of the most incredible stunts ever seen on television, and it paid the price. The truck's identity was built on a GMC square-body pickup. While often called an 82, the production used a range of model years from 80 till 86. The primary hero truck used for close-ups was a 1981 GMC K2500 with the Sierra Grande trim package. An important detail for replica builders, as those fender emblems are unique to 81 and are incredibly rare. But the coolest features were the gadgets. The chrome roll bar with KC lights, the winch on the front, and of course the secret side panel compartment used for stashing fugitives and gear. Now, pinpointing an exact number of trucks used is tough, as no official log exists. However, production accounts make it clear they burned through so many of them. The general consensus amongst fans and experts is a total of around 15 trucks used over the series. The show featured 33 major jumps, and each one inflicted catastrophic damage. The opening credits famously show the front axle buckling on landing. The trucks were simply not built for that kind of abuse. It was an expensive and unsustainable way to film. The constant destruction led to one of the most brilliant innovations in TV stunt history. The stock GMC pickups were nose-heavy and would always nosedive during jumps. And so, starting in the second season, the production, with the help from GM, developed a radical solution. They built 3 specially engineered, purpose-built jump trucks. The most significant modification was moving the entire V8 engine to the middle of the chassis, right under the cab. This completely changed the weight distribution, allowing the trucks to fly level and, crucially, land without destroying themselves, ready to jump another day. These were heavily reinforced, highly specialized stunt machines. So, after all those jumps, crashes and explosions, how many of Colt's trucks are left? The answer is incredible. Only one. And it's not the pretty hero truck you saw on close-ups. The sole survivor is one of the 3 specialized mid-engine jump trucks. Today it is owned by a dedicated enthusiast and historian named Kevin Webb in Tennessee. The rest of the Fall Guys fleet lives only in fan-built replicas, like the famous one from Vincennes University that sold for nearly $100,000. In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they did not commit. And for the next 5 years they survived as soldiers of fortune, operating off one of the most recognizable vehicles in history, the A-Team van. This 1983 GMC Vandora was more than just transportation. It was a mobile command center, with rolling armory, and the indomitable 5th member of the team. But its real story has been shrouded in confusion for decades, thanks to a fleet of official fakes. For years nobody could agree on how many A-Team vans there really were. The confusion stems from a fleet of promotional vans that toured the country, which many people mistook for the real thing. However, now we have a definitive answer from a man who orchestrated all the action. Stunt coordinator Craig Baxley. He confirmed that for the show's entire run, the production used a total of 8 screen-used vans. But these 8 vans were not all the same. They were divided into 2 very distinctive categories. First unit, the hero vans, a total of 2. These are pristine 1983 GMC Vandoras used for any scenes with the actors. They were meticulously maintained and had full custom interior, the 4 swiveling captain's chairs, the CB radio, and the wall-mounted gun racks. And the second unit was the stunt vans, a total of 6. These were the workhorses destined for the high-octane sequences. On the outside they looked identical to the hero vans, but their interiors were often stripped out, fitted with internal roll cages to protect the stunt drivers. The destruction of the A-Team's vans wasn't an accident, it was a line item in the budget. Craig Baxley stated that over the show's run, 4 of the screen-used vans were completely destroyed. That's half of the entire fleet. The main culprit, just like with the General Lee, it was the vehicle jump. Baxley said it best: anytime you do a major jump, that's usually the end of the vehicle. The 5,000-pound van's frame would be catastrophically damaged upon landing, even if it looked like it drove away on screen. After the show ended, Baxley confirmed that there were 3 original screen-used vehicles remaining. His breakdown was precise: 2 first-unit hero vans and 1 second-unit stunt van. And the great news is, we know where 2 of them are. The lone surviving stunt van is on display at Hollywood Cars Museum in Vegas. It's authenticated by the presence of its original roll cage and non-detailed interior, a true artifact of 80s stunt work. One of the 2 hero vans is a main attraction at the Orlando Auto Museum at Digitaland Park in Florida. It is officially presented as a screen-used vehicle and perfectly fits the description of a surviving, well-preserved hero van. And so, what about the 3rd survivor, the second hero van? Its fate is, well, unknown. After the show wrapped, it could have been sold off by the studio, repainted for another production, or simply scrapped. It is the last member of the A-Team. And what about those promotional vans? There was a separate fleet of 6 officially licensed replicas, based on 1979 Chevy vans that toured the country for marketing, but they were never used in filming, and their existence adds a confusing layer for collectors. And so, there you have it. 4 legendary vehicles, 4 incredible stories. From the hundreds of General Lees sacrificed for the sake of a perfect jump, to the dozens of kits systematically destroyed by a contractual obligation. From the 15 Fall Guy trucks whittled down to a single, highly engineered survivor, to the 8 A-Team vans that have left us with 2 known survivors and 1 lingering mystery. The common thread is the brutal reality of 80s television production. It took a fleet of real, physical, and ultimately disposable cars to create the illusion of a single, immortal automotive hero. Let me know in the comments which of these is your favorite, and what other cars you would like me to investigate next. Until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.